In today's episode, we'll tackle a case that shocked the nation and sparked heated debates about free speech, mental health, and moral responsibility. It's the story of a teenage girl convicted of involuntary manslaughter for encouraging her boyfriend to take his own life through text messages and phone calls. How did a 17-year-old's words become a matter of life and death? And what does this case tell us about the power of influence in the digital age?
If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
Welcome back into the Escape Pod, everybody. I'm Julie.
We're looking at the camera now.
Just
I'm
for this
Charity.
part.
Hi.
And we're so happy to have you with us today. This is a podcast about escaping all of the things.
All the bad things, usually.
All the bad things. Sometimes they're funny things, though.
Sometimes they're funny.
Sometimes life just throws you a curveball.
Spoiler alert.
It hasn't been the best day.
No funny.
We've not had the best day.
Yeah.
So are you just escaping from the day or something specific?
Well, okay. So
just Thursday in general.
I have been, this glitch in the matrix thing, I think this might be a thing. So how many times have I set out? So, it's just a thing. One Heart is a big campus.
Yes, it is.
In the very, very early days, I was responsible for going through every single, how every door was going to work, what furniture needed to go in get all the orders together, all the stuff. Mm-hmm. So there have been times when things that I know we have purchased and I have seen are just poof, they're just gone, okay? And this has happened a few times.
I was going to say 2 or 3.
It's escalated in the last couple of weeks because one of our partners was doing something different to their office, and they were like, hey, do you need any of this stuff? And so I think our crew went over and picked up a couple of desks, and they got like some cubicle wall partitions, big, heavy things that you can make, little cubicle offices out of, and brought that into one of our storage rooms. I never laid eyes on them. But after the staff went and picked them up, said, Charity, these are in the storage room. Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. Now I'm thinking ahead to staffing up for our employment platform. Mm-hmm. And I go to look for said partitions. They are nowhere on this campus. And then I'm like, okay, well, I never laid eyes on. Did I have a fever dream? What is happening?
I think the ghost belongs to a moving company.
I think it might be in my brain, but maybe the ghost belongs to. But how the hell did these things disappear? So I've got 2 employees that allegedly picked these things up. One has no memory of picking them up. One has the memory of picking them up, and the 2 of them together hauling them down to the room. But only half of the product is there. The desks are there. The partitions are not. And this is not the only time these things have happened. We have like invoices of things where the way our processes work, Kelly and Nicole will check off on every single thing. They don't just say, oh, order received. They make sure everything that was ordered was checked off on, and it's very thorough. Just gone. And we have cameras everywhere. These things are not walking out. So there's got to be, I think we're on like a universal rift or something, and we just keep going into different universes. Like today, I ate arugula for lunch. I love that stuff, but it gets all up in my teeth. Uh-huh. And so I went to go brush my teeth, and I pulled my toothbrush out of its holder, and I'm like, this toothbrush was not blue yesterday. I'm convinced it was not blue yesterday. And then there was all the homebrew furniture. You hear our homebrew ads, I'm sure, every podcast episode. A lovely patio, lovely little cafe. I ordered more furniture in the early days that was ADA accessible because our tables are high. So I ordered low tables for wheelchair access. And there's only one in the shop. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking around going, what the? They're not in storage in that building. Where did they go? I finally figured that one out at least. I was ordering something last week, and I looked and I went, oh, the microwave is on one. That drink cooler inside the
gotcha.
front door is on another one. I'm like, at least that mystery solved. But these partitions, I have had
gonna drive her
5
crazy.
staff people looking for them. They do not exist. And other things that we've lost. They just have gone out of our universe.
Yeah.
They're just gone. So we need some paranormal investigators up in this place, I think. Like before you hit record,
I know
everything was glitching. I think
it's a little glitchy today, so we
we're
do
in the
have
Matrix.
a little.
Yeah, and it's starting to AI is getting, it's infecting everything, and so it's going to start to show us that more. Like, haha, just kidding. This isn't real. You're in a program. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm over it because I can barely track my own life in this place, and then this stuff happens, and I'm just like, I think I'm going around the bend. Yeah, so I'm over it.
Well, very real is my peeling forehead from my sunburn I got last weekend because it was
But at least there was sunshine.
especially nice.
Yeah.
And I am old enough to know better. I really had no excuse for not having more sunscreen on. I did have sunscreen on my face, clearly not enough. And but I had like my left arm especially got really sunburned, and I just was like, "Well, you're an idiot." The only defense for my behavior is that it was really breezy outside on the day that I got burned, and so you just didn't feel as hot as it was.
Yeah.
So, but I'm like, oh, my very, very pale skin does not like this. So that, and then on a more serious topic, which is, this is kind of weird because I didn't know which topic you were picking to talk about today, but I am wearing pink today in memory of a very special woman who passed away a year ago. And I learned, many of us learned kind of after the fact, had in her life some medical issues and then mental health issues as well. And so she was one to wear pink, and the swim team today was decked out.
Oh, okay.
And so I decided to wear my pink today as well. So all I want to say on that note, and it is going to go along with what you're talking about as well, which again, I did not know.
Possibly, yeah.
But just to say that you can always call or text 988 if you're struggling, and that you matter. And one of her loved ones said after the fact, I think she thought she was going to be a burden.
Right. Saving them from the care.
And he said she would not have been a burden, and so just to say, the people you leave behind miss you.
Yeah.
And that you matter in this world. So if you're ever doubting that, please don't.
Don't make me freaking cry. Now you expect me to tell a story?
I know, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were telling this one, I swear.
I think we need to change topics like right now.
No, I think it's important. Okay. And so, there's our escapisms. I am curious about this story. And we actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago, like what are the implications of some people's behaviors? And then are there consequences when you harass somebody to the point that they take extreme actions?
Yeah.
And so I think it is important.
We have talked about that in terms of bullying, right?
Correct. Yeah.
This one is such a different angle.
Okay.
And I think that we had been talking about this on a previous episode, and I said, ooh, that reminds me of this, and I hadn't covered the story yet.
Yeah.
I hadn't even researched it. I just read about it.
Okay.
So it's super interesting. I have to imagine that this won't be the last time we see this in the news.
Unfortunately, no.
But it has established now legal precedent. It's very interesting on a lot of levels. So
here we go.
Are you ready?
No.
Okay.
But I think it's important, so we're going to talk about it anyway.
All right. So we've all heard looks could kill, right? Have you ever heard that words can kill?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we all kind of grew up, at least I did, with that whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but, blah, blah, blah. Words will never hurt me. And I'm telling you, big trigger warning on this. We're going to discuss suicide. We're going to discuss mental health struggles and sensitive legal issues too.
Okay.
So you mentioned 988, but if you're struggling, resources like the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 are available to you all the time. 988 is way easier to remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 988 it. But we're going to talk about Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy, who was a good friend, boyfriend. The story kind of changes, so I'll let you decide what you think they were. But let's go into background on these two first, because to have any chance at really understanding this case, you need to know like how they met, how they intersected, how they operated, what their lives were like, and then we'll build it out from there. Okay. So Conrad Roy III, he was an 18-year-old from Mattapoisett, Massachusetts. I think I got that. We do have listeners in Massachusetts. In fact, fun fact. I'm going to have a fun fact. I've been doing an analysis on the podcast. We have listeners in all but 2 states.
Oh, cool.
So I think it's Montana and New Hampshire. What the hell? That's all I'm going to say.
Well, if she's saying the Massachusetts town wrong, by all means, write in.
Please correct us.
Yeah.
By all accounts, Conrad was a bright kid. He had a really promising future. He was an honor roll student. He had just graduated high school. He had earned his sea captain's license.
Oh, cool.
Which I thought was super cool. And he was accepted to Fitchburg State University to study business. Okay. So he had a plan. He had a career path. He was ready to go. But like so many people beneath the surface, Conrad, he was struggling with depression and social anxiety. That is definitely something that is more prevalent now than I remember growing up with.
I would agree.
He'd attempted suicide before, including an overdose on acetaminophen in 2012, and he was prescribed the antidepressant Celexa, and this is going to come back into play. So his family described him as very sweet but vulnerable, dealing with the weight of his parents' divorce, and there was some allegations of verbal abuse from his dad.
Okay.
There were even some allegations that his father had maybe been violent with him in the past. That obviously is not going to help the mental health struggles, although I could not find anything that documented how severely. So I'll just say it's an allegation. I don't know if it's true. Michelle Carter, the other party in this, whatever, it's not it's dramatic, but it's not a drama, if that makes sense. 17, a little bit younger, from Plainville, Mass. She was about 50 miles away from Conrad, and she was a high school student battling her own mental health issues, including an eating disorder and depression. I think she'd been clinically diagnosed. She was also prescribed Celexa and had spent time actually in treatment for her mental health struggles and her eating disorder struggles. So she knew the power of mental health and treatment and all this stuff, and that will come back into play too. So how these two meet, it's 2012. They're vacationing. Both families just happen to be vacationing in Florida, and that's where they meet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But they're both from Massachusetts.
Yeah, they live about 50 miles apart. So the relationship was mostly virtual over the course of 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. They met in person only a handful of times, but they exchanged thousands of texts and emails. Thousands. They became confidants for one another, sharing their struggles and their hopes and dreams and all the stuff. But it was not like a typical teenage romance. Like their bond was really intense, really because of like the constant pain that they each felt and were enduring. And then in that like constant digital communication, I imagine it was just like feeding it all the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I do know what you mean.
So they really only saw each other in real life a few times, but they were like always.
It's like their
back and
bond
forth.
was in their suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. Very possible. So he confided in Michelle about his suicidal thoughts. And initially, she encouraged him, like a good friend, to seek help. In 2012, when he talked about suicide, she texted, "You have so much to live for." But for some reason, by the end of the summer of 2014, something changed. I'll let you decide what you think that was. As time went on, she began encouraging to go through with the suicide. Quote, "Drink bleach, hang yourself, jump off of a building, stab yourself, IDK. There's a lot of ways. If you want it as bad as you say you do, it's time to do it today."
Oh, my.
So, I mean, and part of that, it's hard when you don't see all the context.
Correct. I would agree with that. Yes.
Have you ever just said, like, you're so fed up with a line of something, it's just like, fine, go ahead and do it.
Yes.
Drink bleach, whatever. Like, does that make it
Did she actually
right?
mean it?
Did she mean
Was
it?
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of those types of
Is
questions.
it
coming up.
sarcasm? Like,
Right.
I've had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang with me. All right. But leading up to this event where you already know what he does, there is a particularly eerie text string between the two of them that I think stands out of all the ones I looked at. So it starts with her. I think your parents know you're in a really bad place. I'm not saying they want you to do it, but I honestly feel like they can accept it. They know there is nothing they can do. They've tried helping. Everyone's tried. But there is a point that comes when there isn't anything anyone can do to save you, not even yourself. And you've hit that point. And I think your parents know you've hit that point. You said your mom saw a suicide thing on your computer and she didn't even say anything. I think she knows it's on your mind and she's prepared for it. Everyone will be sad for a while, but they'll get over it and move on. They won't be in depression. I won't let that happen. They know how sad you are, and they know that you are doing this to be happy, and I think they will understand and accept it. They will always carry you in their hearts. So that's more than a...
sarcasm.
It's like, I'm giving you permission.
Yeah.
We will be, the people who love you will be okay with this, is what that sounds like to me. And his response is, aw, thank you, Michelle.
Wow.
Which... if she's already suffering from mental health struggles of her own, how is she interpreting that? Oh, I'm on the right line. This is resonating with him. I'm making him feel better, more comfortable with his line of thought or whatever. So then she says they'll move on for you because they know that's what you would have wanted. They know you wouldn't want them to be sad and depressed and be angry and guilty. They know you want them to live their lives and be happy, so they will for you. You're right. You need to stop thinking about this and just do it, because overturning always kills overthinking. And he says, yeah, it does. I've been thinking about it for too long. And then she replies, always smile, and yeah, you just have to do it. You have everything you need. There's no way you can fail. Tonight's the night. It's now or never. And then there's just others. One that stood out to me from the day he passed, he said, I'm determined. Michelle says, I'm happy to hear that. When you get back from the beach, you gotta. So he'd been out at the beach with his mom. You need to do it, Conrad. All you have to do is turn the generator on and you will be free and happy. And also on the day of his suicide, she said, you keep pushing it off and say you'll do it, but you never do. It's always going to be that way if you don't take action. You just need to do it. No more pushing it off. No more waiting. If you want it as bad as you say you do, it's time to do it today. And as he got closer to actually doing it, she texted him, you better not be bullshitting me and saying you're going to do this and then purposely get caught. So that just gives you some of the context of, like, he's reached out for help. She tries being supportive. She tries a different approach. This is where it stands on the day of.
Yeah.
Okay. And at this point, he has also given her details on how, if he was going to do it, how he was going to do it. So that's why she makes reference to turning the generator on, and I'll explain that later.
Okay.
So we already know where this is going. July 12th, 2014 is the fateful day. He spent the whole day with his mom, Lynn, at Horseneck Beach. They talked about his future. Like he's given his mom that one last happy memory, maybe. She later testifies that he seemed to be in good spirits. Like, just, you know, they were snacking, they were enjoying time at the beach, just really enjoying life. And that evening, Conrad told his mom he was going to a friend's house. Instead, he drove to a Kmart parking lot in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. There, he placed a generator in the cab of his truck with him, filling the cab with carbon monoxide. He died by suicide at age 18, leaving behind an apology note to his family that read, live life to the fullest. Which, again, very much inspired by, it seems to be inspired by her text to him.
Okay.
All right. So at first it seems like a tragic but straightforward suicide. He left the notes, including one to Michelle saying, keep strong in tough times. But when police examined his phone, that's when they found this barrage of text messages from Michelle that we read earlier in the days and hours leading up to his death. And these weren't messages of support. They were encouragements of following through with this suicide plan. And the most damning evidence came from texts Michelle sent to a friend after his death. She admitted she was on the phone with him as he sat in his truck. And when he got out, scared because the fumes were getting to him, she told him, get back in. Phone records show he spoke to Michelle twice while he was in the truck on the Kmart parking lot. And a later text to her friend indicated what was said during the calls. Someone named Sam. Sam, his death is my fault. Like, honestly, I could have stopped him. I was on the phone with him, and he got out of the car because it was working, and he got scared, and I fucking told him to get back in.
So I just need to pause for a moment. What it sounds like to me, even the thread that you read, and now this, I mean, too, it sounds almost cult-like. Like, this is what a cult leader, it's the pressure and it's the, talking somebody into something. That's a very bizarre from a teenage girl. I mean,
that's an interesting
miffed
theory and connection.
It's kind of a control, like it's almost like she takes a lot of pride in controlling him.
You will hear later what the prosecution thinks maybe was her motivation.
Okay.
And I don't know.
I'm super curious.
I don't know if I would have come to the same conclusion organically or it really hits because I already have heard it.
Okay.
I'm not real sure.
Okay.
So it's interesting that you went down that avenue of like the, this pressure, and it does seem like to follow that kind of pattern. But regardless, this message to Sam saying, like, I could have stopped him.
I could have stopped him.
Those words would become central to the case. So, you want to talk about the investigation and trial. Mm-hmm. Okay. So clearly what started as a suicide investigation quickly turned into a homicide case.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
February 2015, Michelle, then 17, was indicted for involuntary manslaughter. One of my dates is wrong. We'll make sure it's corrected in the show notes. No, it was 2015. Sorry, that was right. I had 12. I had July 12th in my head, and I was like, 2012?
Gotcha.
Okay, sorry, that's my brain. See, I'm glitching. Okay,
You're
I apologize.
okay.
I apologize.
You're okay.
So Michelle at 17 was indicted for involuntary manslaughter as a, quote, youthful offender, end quote, meaning she could face adult penalties.
Ooh.
A grand jury found enough to charge her with wantonly and recklessly assisted suicide. So I had to look this up because we don't usually run around saying wantonly, right? Mm-hmm. So in Massachusetts, involuntary manslaughter is defined as, quote, an unlawful killing unintentionally caused by wanton and reckless conduct. And wanton or reckless conduct is defined as conduct that creates a high degree of likelihood that substantial harm will result to another. So fits that to a T, right?
Right.
Prosecution argued that Michelle's texts and calls created a virtual presence, like God, that just directly caused Conrad's death. They pointed to her instruction to get back in and as reckless and coercive, especially knowing his mental state. I mean, he shared everything with her. And in her opening statement during Michelle's trial in 2017, Assistant District Attorney Mary Claire Flynn said Carter, who was 20 at the time of her trial, wanted sympathy and attention from other girls at school yearning to be the grieving girlfriend who couldn't stop her boyfriend from committing suicide. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, I go back. Okay, so let's go back to the whole keep strong, you got to do it. Because she started out saying, no, let's get help, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, she did.
And then
it turns.
Yeah, and being that everyone's going to wrap their arms around you and console you and all the things.
No.
With some, now I cannot get that. I don't know that that's what Michelle's motivation was. But boy, once that's in your kind of field of view, it does seem plausible.
Yeah.
The defense, on the other hand, led by attorney Joseph Cataldo, he painted a different story. They argued that Conrad's suicide was his own choice, driven by his longstanding depression and prior attempts. They claimed Michelle's texts were protected free speech under the First Amendment and that she initially tried to dissuade him from suicide. I don't know that I would have used that argument. I'm not an attorney. I'm an engineer, but I think that's pretty callous. Mm-hmm. Okay. You look like you're going to say something.
Well, you can't have it both ways. So you can't use the Well, she told him not to do it as a defense if you're saying
The rest of it's protected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Cataldo also introduced testimony from psychiatrist Dr. Peter Bregan, who argued that Michelle's behavior was influenced by her antidepressants, particularly the Celexa. Okay. He claimed it caused her to become apathetic and manic.
Well, I won't speak to because, I mean, not a medical doctor or a psychiatrist.
Other people are. And they looked at Dr. Bregan. He had been involved in numerous similar cases where he defends individuals who are charged with acts committed while taking psychotropics, most often selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so those SSRIs. In his testimony for Michelle's case, he asserted the dangerous mechanism of action of SSRIs. He said after use, they cause serotonin to become depleted in the brain. He argues that Celexa caused involuntary intoxication, and Michelle should not be liable for her actions. Quote, she was grandiose, reckless, not thinking about criminal responsibility. She was unable to form intent because she was so grandiose, end quote. So he's alleging that this antidepressant caused her like a hypomanic state, which impaired her judgment. But the rub here is that his diagnostic evaluation was completed without ever interviewing Michelle herself. His information was gathered by interviews of her family and peers, reading through medical records and text messages, and this was deemed in medical circles as quite unethical.
Oh,
and it certainly did not work in her favor.
Okay. Fascinating.
Yeah.
This is why court cases are so interesting.
I'm working on one now that involves a court case that is blowing my mind. So I won't go down a rabbit hole on that yet. More to come. In June 2017, the day before a jury trial was set to begin, Michelle waived her right to a jury trial, leaving her fate to Judge Lawrence Moniz, I think his name is Armanez. After a bench trial, he found her guilty of involuntary manslaughter, and he focused on that final phone call, saying that Michelle's order to get back in the truck, knowing his fears, was wanton and reckless.
Yep.
She was sentenced to 2.5 years, expected to serve at least 15 months, followed by probation. She served 11 months, and after good behavior was released in early January of 2020. Another deciding factor in his verdict was her failure to act as Roy was dying. This is where things really started getting me fired up. She did not call the police. She did not call his family to intervene. Definitely not a good look for his supposed friend. And she always talked about him as her friend until after he passed, and then he was her boyfriend, which plays to the prosecution's story about the attention, in my opinion. So the verdict was divisive. Some, like Conrad's aunt Kim, believed Michelle forced him to die and that she had a damaged moral core. She said she texted my niece a couple hours later, "Hey, do you know where your brother is?"
You know where he is.
Yeah. And then she texted his mom the next day, "Oh, hey, have you heard from Conrad?" What the hell?
Yeah, that's real weird.
Yeah. So this, of course, raised big questions. Can words alone kill? And where's that line between influence and criminal responsibility? And that's what really this whole case hinges on. So there was an appeal, of course, predicated on whether someone could legally be found guilty of a crime if they weren't on the scene.
But the definition of that, the definition they're using to convict her, it totally fits.
Yep.
Yeah. So
it didn't say physically present wanton and reckless behavior, but so let's pivot a little bit into the psychological and social context of this case. So again, we know they were both struggling with mental illness. He had depression and past suicide attempts, which made him vulnerable and easily influenced. Michelle had eating disorders and medication changes, which may have affected her judgment. There's a podcast called Psychiatry and Psychotherapy. I cannot. Just done. Put a fork in me. Oh, my God. Okay, Dr. David Puter on this podcast, he noticed that neither received adequate treatment. Mm-hmm. So that's the only source I found that at. He left. So this leaves two teenagers in today's society to work through their issues through text messages.
Yeah.
Michelle didn't seem to be the right person to guide Conrad to a better place, considering she was struggling herself. And then there's also this whole vein of digital communication, because we all know people behave differently when you're looking at a screen and not a person, right? Their relationship was almost entirely virtual, and experts say these texts weren't just words. It's because that's the society many of these young people live in. That's like his entire life.
It's their
so she's
connection.
there, like omnipresent, right?
Yes.
I mean, we've talked before about, you know, I wouldn't put him to the level of stalkers, because I've had stalkers, as we've talked about. But there was that situation I mentioned at a conference that made me incredibly uncomfortable. And he had my phone number. And just that knowing, and because he'd said, how'd you sleep? And just freaking creepy stuff.
Creepy.
It is. You feel like it's all around you. You can't, because it's in your device. It's right there. They have that immediate doorway into you. And so I really think there's a lot of validity to this thought of that being this constant, like omnipresent force or something in somebody's life. And then there's Michelle's mindset. Some argue she was seeking attention. The judge even suggested that when he prevented her from profiting from the case as a condition of her sentencing, which I thought was slick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her text to friends after Conrad's death claiming she heard him die, and her turning around and organizing a suicide prevention fundraiser. Those two things contradict one another and lead to questions to me of whether Michelle was intentionally manipulating him, or was she just a confused teen grappling with her own issues and being dramatic? I don't know. And then we have the legal and ethical implications. Obviously, this broke new legal ground, this case. It was one of the first to hold someone criminally liable for encouraging suicide through words alone.
Okay.
A 2023 Houston Law Review article argued the court blurred the line between free speech and criminal liability, potentially setting a dangerous precedent.
Well, I don't agree because, I mean, I remember learning in probably middle school or high school, definitely by high school, that what is not protected free speech is yelling fire in a crowded place.
Right.
Again, you're not.
Get back in the truck.
Or you call in a bomb threat and somebody has a heart attack trying to get out of some place.
Right.
You know, it's like that is criminal behavior.
Yeah.
It is not protected speech.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
And I am a big fan of free speech. Even when people say stuff that's stupid, I'm like, hey, at least I know where you stand.
At least I know you're stupid. Yeah.
At least I know you think this way, and I want to know you think that way, because then I cannot do business with you, or I cannot, you know, befriend you, or whatever that is. Free speech has limits. Like, okay.
Well, the
Now you have
Massachusetts
me fired
Supreme Court agrees with you. They
Thank
upheld
you.
the conviction, stating that the state's interest in preserving life justified limiting speech that overpowers a person's will to live. So they're on your side of things here. Conrad's mother, Lynn Roy, she's pushed for Conrad's Law, a proposed Massachusetts bill to criminalize suicide coercion with up to 5 years in prison. As of 2021, it was still pending, but it reflects a growing recognition of coercive influence in as a public safety issue.
Okay.
So anyway.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
It is fascinating. It's so sad. It's so, so, so sad. And, I mean, I would even say it's sad for her, because if that's where you are,
where you needed that attention,
yeah,
if that's what it was.
Well, and even at first, like my initial thing when she first said, you know, if you do it and, you know, your family will miss you and, you know, but
they'll be happy for you.
They'll be happy, whatever. And part of me thought, is she just projecting here? Like maybe she wants somebody to be telling her that because she had also had some ideations, whatever. So at first it kind of felt that way. But as it kept going and then the things that happened in the aftermath, that's where
texting his cousin and his mom, hey, do you know where
you turned the tide for me. Like, I then I start thinking attention or control, and then enjoying some of the attention. And, you know, if you, admit to somebody else, like, hey, I could have stopped him and I didn't. And now I'm doing a prevention.
My God, that was the
event
thing that was like, you could not be any more insensitive or tasteless. Like, that's just the cherry on top. Like, I think that shows motivation more than anything.
Yeah.
What maybe that underlying motivation was.
I thought that was a key too. Yeah.
So
let's take a break.
Yeah.
I need a drink of water or something because I'm a little fired up now.
You are. You've been fired up all morning. Thanks. One of the first messages I got from Julie this morning, I won't say what the context was, but I got a WTF, which is not typical for Julie, by the way. That's more likely to come out of my mouth. So she's been fired up all day.
Doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while it is warranted. I'm sorry. Every so often.
I think we're only, like, we've known each other for a lot of years. I think I'm getting to the point where I can count the number of curse words. It's taking two hands now over this many years.
We're there.
Yeah.
We're there. Okay. We're going to stay here, though. We'll be right back. Need an early morning boost or midday pick-me-up? Check out the Homebrew Coffee Shop, a coffee shop with a cause in the heart of the One Heart campus. Homebrew is home to delicious coffee, sweet treats, breakfast, and lunch items, a great place to meet friends or host small group meetings. Homebrew, located at 201 Kansas City Street in Rapid City. Open Monday through Friday from 6:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Homebrew, where you'll find hope for a home in every cup. We are back in the escape pod.
I had to take Julie off the ceiling. She's boiling today. Sorry about that.
I think it's just so sad.
It is
I think
sad.
it's just so sad. So we're not going to end on that note. We are going to lighten things up because this was my requirement of doing this podcast, was that we would end on a lighter note every time. So we're doing it. Tell me someplace you want to escape to.
What do I want to escape to? We have a new content creator.
Yeah.
Very excited about.
Okay.
I get to give her a tour of the campus tomorrow.
Oh.
So I love showing this off to new employees, and I think it's important so they understand what we're trying to promote and all this stuff. And so I'm looking forward to that. Tomorrow's supposed to be a very nice day.
Okay.
And I love giving tours when it's not raining and cold like it is today. So
yes. Right. Yeah, today would not be the day.
This is a weird spring for us.
Just a little bit.
It's a cold, weird spring for us. We'll have a 90-degree day, and then we have a 40-degree day. And then we have 50s and rain.
It is.
And then it'll be 90 degrees, and then just kidding. It's just like this little teaser, like carrot.
Bizarre.
I'm not.
It is
not
kind
down
of,
for
that
it.
is June for us, though. That's what happens here.
Usually it's more like May.
Yeah.
June. By the time June rolls around, usually it's like pretty solid, gorgeous spring, 70s, 80s, and I don't know what's happening. It's that other universe, I'm telling you.
Quit trying to figure it out.
We're in the wrong dimension. I don't know what's happening.
Well, I am such a swim nerd. My niece is at a big national meet in Indianapolis, and so she swims again tomorrow and Saturday, and this is where digital technology is awesome, is that I get to watch from afar.
Very cool.
So it is a super fun thing to do, is to get to cheer her on, even though all I'm doing is yelling at my TV at home. I don't care.
And she yells.
And I do yell.
Julie gets into it when she's
You should be with my mother.
either competing or watching something that she cares about the outcome on.
You should see my mother watch a race. Oh my gosh. I had to tell her because my dad had knee surgery the other day, so they had to watch from like the recovery room. And I was like, before I left him, she was like, Jenna swims at such and such time. I said, I do know. And she's like, we'll be watching. And I said, remember, you're in a hospital room. Because we were in a restaurant once watching, and I had to be like, Mom, there's other people here. So I keep it in check in public places, but not if I'm watching at home or like in my car or something like that. So that's my escapism.
Well,
I am
cool.
very
Very
excited
cool.
about that. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you. We really can't say that enough. If you didn't know this already, by supporting the podcast, you are in turn supporting the nonprofit where we work, One Heart in Rapid City, South Dakota. So if you support us by becoming a patron, Charity will talk about that in a minute, or just by listening and sharing and helping us generate more listeners.
Leaving a review.
Yes.
Simple.
The more downloads we have, the
More
better off it
visibility.
is.
Yep.
It's that simple. So By doing so, you're empowering people to overcome crisis and achieve self-sustainability with us.
And that's right. Like a lot of the podcasts I listen to will sponsor nonprofits. Like every month they'll do like sponsor. I've only ever heard of one other that was started to support a nonprofit. We're the second one that I know of. I'm sure there are others out there. But it really is like for a cause. So you're listening. You can feel good about what you're listening. Share the word. You can feel good about it. You can become a patron, unlock bonus content, like uncensored stuff, behind the scenes things. I mean, we have a lot of fun stuff on there and a lot of fun stuff planned coming up. But you just know if you're doing that, becoming a patron, and you can do it for as little as $2 a month, that you're supporting the real life escapes of all of the guests that we serve here at One Heart.
Yeah.
So,
$2, $5, or $10.
Win-win.
You can do any of that. We do like to hear from you, so connect with us at escapepod.live. Follow us on our socials. Drop a note at justbecause@escapepod.live or send your wild escape story to escapeartist@escapepod.live.
Yeah. And if you're interested in becoming having us do an ad for you, reach out.
Sure.
At justbecause@escapepod.live and we will hook you up.
Yep. We are closing the hatch on this episode of the Escape Pod. Remember, trauma may be inevitable. I can't talk either.
It's contagious.
It sure is.
Run for your life.
Trauma may be inevitable. How you grapple with it is optional. So stay resilient.
And remember that your words matter.
Absolutely. And you matter. And keep laughing.